As a matter of fact, this issue now is in the Catholic Church. Of all the churches now, the Catholic Church is in this thing.
Every single day, I'm gonna make something great. That's my way.
Hi everyone. In the year 2014, we held a fundraiser in our local church, or what we call a harambee in this country, so that we could be able to buy a plot and perhaps construct a house for our pastor. Now, this was deemed as a permanent solution from what we were doing then, because what we were doing then is that we used to contribute some money every month to pay for the rent of the pastor that we had then. We were able to raise about 1 million shillings, 10,000 shillings of which was mine. Not like I have any problem with that. But the week leading to the harambee, our pastor had a scandal. Whether it is true or not is a subject for discussion up to date. The issue that I have here is that all this money that we contributed was deposited direct into the pastor's account, and he was able to buy the land which he was living in by then, the one that he was renting. And this plot that he bought actually had got some rental houses. So he not only became a landowner, but he became a landlord in a church where about 70% of the members are still tenants. No sooner were we through the harambee than the pastor was kicked out of the church, and his deputy, Uncle Sam, a very good friend of mine, took over the leadership of the church. And the former pastor went out there and started his own church. And that's precisely the problem that I have with all this issue, that he had now become not just a landowner, but also a landlord, courtesy of the members of our church, who he was now no longer leading. It's not like I have anything against the former pastor. Actually, he's still a very good friend of mine, and every time I go to my hometown, Gitahi, I make an effort of meeting him, and we still talk over the phone. But when I look at all this issue, I feel that we did a mistake as a church. I mean, shouldn't we have borrowed a leaf from other mainstream churches like the PCA, the Catholic, the AIC, the ACK, who construct a house for their pastor, for the reverend, inside the church? So the house becomes the property of the church and not an individual's property. I mean, that is exactly what goes on in this country and any other country in the world, that we have got leaders of particular institutions who stay in particular offices or residences or even homes, courtesy of the offices they hold. A very good example is the State House. I mean, anybody who becomes the president of this country will occupy State House. It is not anybody's property. It is for the president. Which president? Whoever that is going to come in 2022 and beyond. These are some of the issues that we should discuss openly and candidly as members of any church in this country and beyond. I mean, should we in the first place contribute money to buy any of our pastors a house or a vehicle or whatever the thing that we want to buy for them? If we agree that we should buy, then the second question comes in: under whose name is this property going to be registered? Is it going to become a personal property of the pastor, or it is going to become the property of the church? The biggest problem that I have with all this issue, because I said I have a big problem with this issue, is that I doubt whether as the members of our church we really learned a lesson from the mistake that we did. Because I am foreseeing a situation where we are going to repeat the same mistake. We are going to come up in the church and say that we want to contribute some money again to buy our pastor a vehicle. And I'm not talking about my church here, the AIPCK Kitale Town Church. I'm talking to the other branches of the church that we have elsewhere, the AIPCK Kiungani, Kiminini, Gidea, Makoi, Matunda, all these churches. I'm not even talking about my church here. I'm talking to every other church in this country, because I have seen this problem, or I have seen this issue with many other churches. As a matter of fact, this issue now is in the Catholic Church. Of all the churches now, the Catholic Church is in this thing. And you see a father in a particular church now, that members of that church are contributing so that they can buy the father a vehicle, and it becomes personal. I remember when I was young, in early 2000, I was about 16 years old, and we were doing the same. We were contributing some money so that we could buy our bishop a vehicle, who is now our current archbishop. And I remember asking my mother, this car that we are going to buy, shall it be registered under the bishop's name or the church's name? My mother answered me as a matter of fact that it shall be registered under the bishop's name. So I never followed up. But as young as I was, I felt that something was amiss from that kind of arrangement. Because what if this bishop is kicked out of the church like we did our former pastor? What if he resigns? What if he just goes out voluntarily and starts another church? What if he dies? I don't know why people have a problem with death. You know, I'm supposed to say, what if my bishop dies, or my pastor dies, or my neighbor dies, and then add, God forbid. I mean, how can God forbid death? I mean, he is the author of death. The problem with all this death issue is that people are scared. Ati utaambiwa uko na matembaya, ulitaja mtu alafu akakufa. I have no problem with death. All I'm saying is that let's discuss these issues as openly, candidly, and honestly as we can. Because is it really sustainable? Because right now, as our church, our current pastor, Uncle Sam, should be residing in the pastor's residence. But we don't have such a residence because we contributed money towards a pastor who is no longer a pastor of our church. Again, it is not like I'm opposing this issue of the members of the church buying the pastor or the reverend or the bishop a vehicle or whatever property they want to buy. But number one, what does the constitution of the church say? Because I called my good friend Kibiru and he told me, like, in our church, the constitution states that any money contributed by the church members to buy anything in the church or any property, it becomes the property of the church. Like if the church buys a keyboard or some seats in the church or even some sufurias, those become the property of the church. And even if the pastor is going out of the church, he cannot carry them with him because they belong to that church. But the problem here is that we come up with an issue called a gift, that let us gift our pastor. You know, this issue, by the way, I know about it because the pastor goes to the chairman and then talks to the chairman, and then the idea comes from the chairman, but it is actually coming from the pastor himself. And then we end up buying these properties for these pastors. They become their personal property. And I don't think this thing is sustainable. But if the church members decide to follow that path and gift their pastor, I have no problem with it. But let them be given an opportunity to ask questions. Let them be given an opportunity to ask for accountability from the leaders of their church. You know, I have seen these churches where members of the church are silenced using the word of God, that you should not question the pastor. I mean, well, you should not belong to such a church. We are going to be asking questions. We are going to be asking for accountability, starting from the church before we go to the government. That is all I'm asking for today. And I don't think I'm asking for too much. Thank you so much. I'm out.